I was like, what is this about? What?
That's okay though. For being so young, you're very, very smart. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So keep up the good work, man, and stay flat, okay?
Okay, I'm a flat earther. She couldn't do it. I'm a flat earther. I'm a flat earther. I'm a flat earther.
What'd your teacher do?
She just didn't talk to me anymore. All she did was walk away. And I was like, what is this about? What?
That's okay though. For being so young, you're very, very smart. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So keep up the good work, man, and stay flat, okay?
Okay, I'm a flat earther. She couldn't do it.
Up for sound bites. This is awesome.
All right. Good rising, everyone, and welcome back once again to Anti-Religious Scripture Study with me, Karen B., and of course, Just Jack Flat Earth.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. We are streaming back on Unveiling This Realm this week because YouTube gave my main channel a strike, so...
For no reason.
Yeah, for no reason. It's total...
Nonsense.
Ugh.
Yeah. For those who don't know, there was a comedian who became a flat earther and did it publicly, and there was quite a few videos made about how comical it was to see someone going through the cognitive dissonance into realizing that the earth was flat, and for some reason YouTube decided to declare it as hate speech. So ridiculous.
Yeah. So here
Shout out to my friend Tiffany, who is not feeling well today. She's pregnant in bed, has a couple of small children that are being watched by somebody else so that she can get some rest. She's done a whole bunch of homeopathic remedies, and she's, slightly changed, but pray for healing. So send her energy, send her prayers, please do that. Her name is Tiffany. Okay, so I'm going to read the disclaimer, and today I think it's going to be very valid. I think people are going to spiral completely out of control over this chapter. It would have been a shorter video today because last week I was only going to do half the chapter so that I wouldn't have to get into this heavy stuff. But because I lost internet last week due to a power outage, and now I had to buy new equipment to make sure that I'm streaming properly. By the way, if anybody's checked out the prices of routers lately, they are not cheap anymore. They are quite expensive. And so we got that taken care of, and now my internet's working well. So I decided we've missed too much time for me not to go through the whole chapter. So I did continue to translate the entire chapter, which is 55 verses, not a short chapter. And it gets into heavy stuff about, there's a lot of people who don't believe scripture, and they'll use this chapter for gotcha statements about whether slavery is something that should be done, shouldn't be done, bad, good, blah, 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 blah. But I'm going to give you my perspective on it. And I think it's pretty clear in the context if you understand what the terms mean. I'll get into that in a minute, but I'll read my disclaimer. Just Jack's disclaimer. To the religious, if you believe it's wrong to study the scripture outside of your religion or denomination, if you believe your religious leaders or church fathers aren't capable of having inherited anti-scriptural traditions of men, if you've already made up your mind about scripture, including the scripture shouldn't be studied at all, then the stream is not for you. To others, if you're open-minded to others' opinions, if you haven't made up your mind about scripture, if you've been turned off to religion but believe there's truth in scripture that may have been changed or hidden by religion, if you live according to scripture and like to dig in and discover more, this stream is for you. We are looking at scripture in the original language using concordances or dictionaries for root words, as well as context from a non-religion perspective. We will as well have life experience discussion. We are not here to argue with others about theology or doctrine by the traditions of men, including Catholicism, Christianity, or Judaism. We will be discussing the importance of origins and show how religions contradict the scriptures. There you go. So the people that are trying to find got you for, we shouldn't trust the scriptures at all, obviously this isn't for you. Bye. See you later. Log off now. If you can have an open mind and try to learn something from a different perspective, including the ancient Hebrew location and culture perspective and language perspective, then you might learn something. Just another shout out. Let me pull it up real quick so I can find it. There was someone who made a video about our video way back in Genesis, and he did where is it? He did a video, and even if I don't believe or agree with him 100% on everything, I think he did a very good, unbiased inspection into it, comment video, whatever you want to call it. And his name is Kyle Adams. And shout out to Kyle Adams. You did a great job, I think. And I hope that you keep doing this. I hope that you keep looking into these situations and doing your own research and not just trusting men to tell you what's what. So I wanted to shout out to Kyle Adams. He's sent me I guess he tagged me in the video. So I got a comment, and it was very good. I was very pleased, because usually I get anything that I get tagged in, it's usually hate videos and how I'm like evil and stuff. So it was nice. It was nice to see a positive video about my videos. So, all right, so we can get into it. I of course can't see the headers, but you can. I'm sure you have the headers turned on, but they are vague, overarching subtitles to specific portions of Torah, which I don't agree with the subtitles necessarily. So we can get into Leviticus 25 whenever you're ready.
Alrighty. And Yehovah spoke to Moshe on Mount Sinai, saying...
Okay, so really quick, let me just point this out, just in case there's newcomers. There's a difference between davar, word, which is translated as spoke, and amer for speak. And that's right here as well for saying, spoke and saying. So if this was actually spoke, it would be amer, but word is different. It's the word of order, not just speaking. Okay, so for newbies.
Okay.
All right. Verse 2.
Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I give you, then the land shall observe a Sabbath to Jehovah.
Okay, so if you stop reading right there and you're reading out of context, then you'll think that the land has to rest every 7 days. But context is everything.
6 years you sow your field, and 6 years you prune your vineyard and gather in its fruit. But in the 7th year the land is to have a Sabbath of rest, a Sabbath to Jehovah. Do not sow your field, and do not prune your vineyard.
Okay, so this is rotation of field, and you let the land replenish itself. So in the 7th year, instead of harvesting, the fruit / grain falls to the ground, and it adds nutrients and it adds power to the ground. Where the way that modernized farming is done, they have to keep adding stuff to the soil because they're, well, I hate using the vulgar word, but they take full advantage of the ground till it's like dead. Right. And it's not good. And this should be common sense, but it's not. So
right.
All right.
Do not reap what grows of its own of your harvest, and do not gather the grapes of your unpruned vine, for it is a year of rest for the land.
Okay.
And the Sabbath of the land shall be to you for food, for you and your servant, and for your female servant, and your hired servant, and for the stranger who sojourns with you.
Okay.
And for your livestock, the beasts that are in your land, all its crops are for food.
All right. So not only do you have a Sabbath year of rest for the land, but that doesn't mean you're allowed to be stingy with your food. Right? So just because the land is resting doesn't mean that you're not allowed to, or it doesn't mean that you should hoard your food. It should be for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, go ahead.
All right. And you shall count 7 Sabbaths of years for yourself, 7 times 7 years, and the time of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be to you 49 years.
Okay.
You shall then sound a shofar sound in the 10th day of the 7th new moon on Yom HaKippurim, cause a shofar to sound through all your land.
Cause a shofar.
Cause a shofar to sound through all your land.
Yeah, so on Yom HaKippurim, which is the 10th day of the 7th month, we've talked about this several times in multiple locations of the Torah, is the most set apart Sabbath day of the year. And this is the shofar sound. It actually just says shofar. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, it's not yet. Okay, there's something coming up pretty soon that we'll talk about. I think it's the next verse, actually.
All right. And you shall set the 50th year apart, and proclaim release throughout all the land to all its inhabitants. It is a yovel for you, and each of you shall return to his possession, and each of you return to his clan.
Yeah, so this is the word translated as Jubilee. Jubilee does not appear in Hebrew. It's not a Hebrew word, Jubilee.
Which word is jubile? Or what is that?
Jubilee is the word that they translate it into, but it's the word Yovel, and I'm trying to figure it out.
Oh, okay, so they leave the word as it is here. Yovel, that's supposed to be Jubilee.
3104. Oh, there it is.
50th year is a Yovel to you. Actually, I think this year is supposed to be a Jubilee year.
I would ignore any claims of Jubilee years because every year somebody says this is a Jubilee year. Well, I'm not joking.
Yeah, I know.
It happens often.
I'm talking about in financial markets, though, specifically. They call it a Jubilee year.
Talking about modern Jubilee.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so
Hey
its
man,
root
cycles
is,
happen though. There's something to the cycle, so.
oh yeah, there's definitely something to the 7-year cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So a yovel is of due flow, which is referred to as a trumpet sound. So the root of it is flow, or flow to nothing. So the debts flow to nothing with the flowing sound of the trumpet. So it's a parallel meaning here, because the debts go away to nothing, but you do it with a flowing of the horn. And that's because it talks about using the horn to proclaim the flowing away of debt.
Okay.
Sorry about me clearing my throat. Sorry. All right. Verse 11.
The 50th year is a yovel to you. You do not sow nor reap what grows of its own, nor gather from its unpruned vine.
Yeah. So the reason, hold on a second. The reason that I like yovel is because they're not just making up a word. Jubilee has nothing to do with Hebrew or the original scriptures or anything. It's just a made up word. Just like when we talked about the tabernacle is another word. There's a few words that they just like make up to sound like extra spiritual or their own separate meaning into it. So that's the problem, is like if you replace a word with a word, then you can define that word yourself because you've made it up. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look up this word jubilee and then you look up all the definitions that they have for it, that's out of context of the scriptures itself, which is about the flowing.
Okay.
And if you remember, Yom HaKippurim is also the self-inspection and reflection day. So that's a day that you let things flow away from you as well. Like anyone who's done you harm, any harm that you've done somebody else, you let those things flow away from you so that you can be renewed for the year.
All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. It is a yovel. It is set apart to you. Eat from the field its crops.
Okay, so remember, set apart is what they translate as holy, and set apart is definitely a better translation.
In the year of this yovel, let each one of you return to his possession.
Okay, so this is some complicated stuff that you have to understand about return possession. So if they're going to get into detail here, but if you're in a hard situation and you need finances, someone could take possession of your land for a period of time. That means all the work that's done on the land, the person that you're lending it out to gets all the profits from it, right? So, like, let's say I owned a field and, I was growing wheat in my backyard or something. While I owe this person money, that's not my wheat field. That's somebody else's. I just live there, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So they own that property. They own its yield until I pay back the debt that was owed. And when I say paid back the debt I was owed, that I owed is like, let's say I said, well, I need this income or this product or whatever the case may be. And for that, I'll let you use my land for 6 months. Well, if it's a substantial amount, they'll say, you can use my land until the next Jubilee. Because at the Jubilee, everybody has to get their land back, has to get their possession back. Let's say it's not land. Let's say it's a strong bull that you have. You can use my strong bull until the Jubilee, or the strong bull's offspring, because it's still the strong bull, until the Jubilee. So there's a lot of details in this throughout the Torah that you have to get a clear understanding of what it means for possession, because possession in in modern times is like, possession is 2/3 of the law, for instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not this kind of concept. This kind of concept is, it's kind of like a borrowing, but it's a borrowing that is more owned than borrowed for a period of time. And then if you look at the root of this word, it's not possession so much as it's laying hold. So you're holding on to something. Okay?
Okay.
So you're holding something. You're not possessing it. So I don't like that translation of possession. It causes major confusion. But it's to take hold, right?
Envision. Take
Oh
hold.
yeah. So like
envision.
in other verses when it was talking about taking hold, it's like taking hold of a vision, you know. We have ran into that word in the past, so but in this context it's obviously
Return to his possession.
it's not like you can envision having my stuff. That's definitely not this case.
Right.
This is actually taking hold.
But of oneself though, right? Like
not
what?
in this location when it's talking about the Yovel, we're talking about if you're borrowing something from somebody because you owe them money, it's that kind of possession.
Okay.
So it's not possession as in possession of your mind. This is actually taking hold of whether it be land or livestock or something. And we're going to see later on, even yourself can be a possession, but not as we would think. In modern times, like, you can't own anyone. No, you don't technically own them anyways. You're just laying hold on them until the debt is paid.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said, like, laying hold or taking hold is a much better translation than possession, because again, in our modern thinking, possession is you have something and you don't have to let it go because it's in your possession, 2/3 of the law, all that jazz. So if you use the word taking hold rather than possession, you can see it's not the same thing as, like, like kidnapping, right? It's not kidnapping. Or it's not stealing. You're not stealing his land. You're not stealing his oxen. You're borrowing it. You're taking hold of it.
Okay.
Because you have to give it back in the Yovel. All right.
All right. And when you sell whatever to your neighbor or buy from the hand of your neighbor, do not exploit it. Do not exploit one another.
I actually like that translation better than oppress.
Right.
But it's suppress. Like, you don't use it as something to dig in at the person that is owing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I got your stuff, like, you can't do that. It's saying specifically, don't do that, because it's not actually your stuff. It's just something you're laying hold on. So again, the context is everything. All right.
According to the number of years after the Yovel, you buy from your neighbor, and according to the number of years of crops he sells to you.
I think we discussed that already. Like, depending on how much you owe them, that's how long you let them take hold of the item.
Mm-hmm. According to the greater number of years you increase its price, and according to the fewer number of years you diminish its price, because he sells to you according to the number of the years of the crops.
All right. So let's say we have this agreement, right? And it's like, okay, so you get my land for 3 years. And then while you're in possession of the land for those 3 years, it's not yielding as much as you thought it would. So you can't go back and say, well, now I need it for 5 years. No. You made the agreement for 3 years. That's it. That's the value you gave it, 3 years. Not how much you can get in 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's according to the numbers of the years of the increase, not like, oh, it's not giving me enough, so I'm going to hold on to it longer. You can't do that. The agreement is the agreement of time. Okay?
And do not oppress one another, but you shall fear your Elohim, for I am Yehovah your Elohim.
So again, in this context, like, you can't take advantage of someone just because you own their property and say, I'm going to hold on to it for a longer or whatever. Or, like, let's say you say you can use half my field, and then they try to take advantage and say, no, I need the whole field. You can't do that. You can't oppress. Okay. All right.
And you shall do my laws and guard my right rulings, and shall do them, and you shall dwell in the land in safety.
Yeah, here this gets confusing between laws, right rulings. This one says statutes and judgments, which I think the King James Version does it better than the scriptures in this case, because this is a decree or a custom, and then this is right rulings. Judgment, justice is, something that we would be familiar with.
All right. And the land shall yield its fruit, and you shall eat to satisfaction, and shall dwell there in safety. Did I read that already?
No.
And I dwell there in safety. Okay, this keeps ending in safety. And shall dwell there in safety. Okay. And since you might say, what do we eat in the 7th year, since we do not sow nor gather in our crops? Therefore I have commanded my blessing on you in the 6th year, and it shall bring forth the crop for 3 years.
Okay, so let me explain this to you. So in the 6th year, you will have a triple increase of harvest. That's a supernatural event, right? And the reason being is because it's going to last you through the Jubilee year. It's going to last you through the reseeding of the 8th year, the Jubilee, not the Jubilee year, the 7th year, the 7th year rest, right? So it's got to last through the 7th year rest. It's got to last through the 8th year of reseeding. So you have to let the maturity of the land come. And then it lasts you through until the 9th year harvest. That's supernatural. And I was talking to a friend of mine who did some research on this, and I have not done the research. So it's secondhand knowledge. And he said that there are trees. I think he was saying like the black walnut tree, for instance, like every 7th year, they have a triple yield, like a very heavy yield. And he was talking about some other crops in I think he said South America. I don't remember. It was a long time ago that we had this conversation. It was Zachary Zabala, by the way. But he was talking about like there are certain areas that like triple in quantity of growth every 7 years. And that's very cool to me. So we can keep reading, but the dwelling in safety part, I want to look at that really quick before we go back to 21. The talk. Okay, so this is clinging and security. So you feel safe because you're clung to and secure. Okay, I just wanted to look at that really quick. That's what that word safety means.
Okay.
Clinging and security. All right, so we're in verse 22. Sorry.
All right. And you shall sow in the 8th year, and eat of the old crop until the 9th year. Eat of the old until its crop comes in.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right.
And the land is not to be sold beyond reclaim, for the land is mine, for you are sojourners and settlers with me.
Okay, so the land I gave you, you're not allowed to give away. It doesn't matter how much money you owe somebody, you must get that land back in the Jubilee. You must. There's no way. You can never change hands with a foreigner or even with another tribe within the family, right? You can't like sell a land that was given to Judah to Benjamin, for instance. And it's not just the man Judah and the man Benjamin. We're talking about the family of Judah and the family of Benjamin. You cannot trade land. You can't say, this is yours and here's mine, and you can't do that. There is a way of doing it through marriage, but that's another situation we'll get to further in Scripture.
Mm-hmm. All right. And provide for a redemption for the land in all the land of your possession.
Yep.
When your brother becomes poor and has sold some of his possession, and his redeemer, a close relative, comes to redeem it, then he shall redeem what his brother sold.
So your family can purchase it back for you, right? No big surprise there, I think. And again, like when we're talking about, land or rets, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's any physical thing. It's not just land. That limits it because it can be your house. We're going to read about that later. It could be your animal. It could be your land. So land is limiting. It's the arets. Okay, 26.
Okay. And when the man has no one to redeem it, but he himself becomes able to redeem it, then let him count the years since its sale, and return the remainder to the man to whom he sold it, that he shall return to his possession.
Okay, so we make the deal. Let's say it's a 7-year deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I need 700 silver for 7 years. Okay. Well, you end up coming up with 300 silver to give it back. Well, that means you reduce 3 years from the 7, right? It's almost common sense, right? Like if you're I'm going to give you every year we'll pay back 100 silver, for instance. And if you come up with some of the money to get it back, that means that time that the person had possession of your land gets shortened to equal the money amount that was owed. 1 year per 100 silver or whatever deal you made.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, you can't no, I'm going to hold on to it for 7 years, like we said. And you're like, nope, I have the 700 silver right here. You must sell it back to me for the last 3 years. 300 silver, whatever, for the last 3 years.
Right.
You can't hold on to it. You can't hold the land. You have to be able to, he has to be able to buy it back. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. And if his hand has not found enough to give back to him, then what was sold shall remain in the hand of him who bought it until the year of Yovel, and it shall be released in the Yovel, and he shall return to his possession.
All right, I think we explained that,
And when a man sells a house in a walled city, then his right of redemption shall be at the end of the year after it is sold. His right of redemption lasts a year.
All right, so this is different. If it's a house in the city that is walled, there is no arrangement that lasts longer than a year. You have to buy your house back within a year or you lose it. So a city's different than when you're out there, in the field, in farmland. The city's different. The city you can sell because the city is a location where, all sorts of people can move in. It's not land that is handed down. It's where everybody can live. Like sojourners would live there, people visiting from other tribes would live there, stuff like that.
All right. But if it is not redeemed within a complete year, then the house in the walled city shall be established beyond reclaim to the buyer of it throughout his generations. It is not released in the Yovel.
All right.
The houses of villages, however, which have no wall around them, are reckoned as the field of the country. A right of redemption belongs to it, and they are released in the Yovel.
Okay, so it says villages, but it's the courtyard. So like a bunch of properties that come together at a certain point, like their houses are close proximity to each other. That's like a courtyard, but it's not walled, right? It's just people, hey, we're sharing our lot lines. Let's get together and help each other out. That type of deal. If that's the type of property you're buying, then you cannot claim it because that's part of the community within that tribe. You can't keep that. It has to be redeemed.
All right. As for the cities of the Levites and the houses in the cities of their possession, the Levites have a right of redemption forever.
Okay, so the Levites are the ones who, and this says Leviim, which is those who are joined. The Levites, their job is service to the tabernacle, and then future in the temple. They have no inheritance of land because they live basically for free in all the different tribes. They each have a location within the tribes that they have, like it's talking about houses in the cities. They can always buy it back because no one can own Levites' land because they have no inheritance of land.
Okay. And that which is redeemed from the Levites, both the sale of a house and the city of his possession, shall be released in the year of Yovel, because the houses and the cities of the Levites are their possession in the midst of the children of Israel.
Right, because they're like in all the different tribes, there's a location that the Levites have. Not only do they have a location where they're housed, but they also have their own field that cannot be owned either. So it's yeah, they have their own inheritance within all the lands of Israel, but they do not have an inheritance of land specifically for that.
But the field of the open land of their cities is not solid, for it is their everlasting is not sold. Okay, for it is their everlasting possession.
Yep, kind of explained that already.
Yeah. And when your brother becomes poor and his hand has failed with you, then you shall strengthen him, and he shall live with you like a stranger or a sojourner.
Okay, so let's see. He's been brought low, which is poor. And then he is shaking hand. Shaking hand. His hand has failed, is shaking hand. So he's weak, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, this brother, what does that mean? Like up here, we were talking about a man, a man, brother becomes poor. Okay, so brother is specific here. Neighbor. Okay, so you got brother and neighbor, which are important differences. There's brother, neighbor, sojourner, foreigner. I think I covered it all. But these are all different rankings, if you will, in relationship to you. It would be like you may act differently with your sibling than you would with your best friend. And you may work differently with your best friend differently than you would with your neighbor. And you may work differently with your neighbor than you would with a coworker or a what's the word? Like you know someone but you don't know them. Acquaintance. Thank you. That's a good word for it. So you may work differently with an acquaintance, and then you may work differently with someone that you're meeting for the first time. You don't know nothing about them, their culture, anything else like that. Each people, you're going to be having a different reaction with them and how you deal with them. Even though people say that they don't, they absolutely do. There's no way to get around it. It's ingrained in us. It's hardwired into us that you treat different people differently based on how much you can trust them or how much you're related to them, right? So this is speaking brother. When it says brother, it means within the tribe, okay? When it says neighbor, it's within the neighboring tribe. So it's still your quote unquote brothers, but they're of a different tribe, right? So Benjamin and Judah, I'm just going to use those because they're just easy to remember. So Benjamin and Judah, even though they're brothers in Israel, in this case, they're neighbors because we're talking about dealings with possessions. So they're your neighbors, not your brother in that case. A sojourner is someone who's trying to join with Israel, but not yet established. A foreigner or a stranger is someone who is just now coming in. You don't know nothing about them. You don't know what their if they're trustworthy, what kind of dealings, how they deal with people, what belief system they have. There's a difference in these titles, okay?
Right.
And they become very important for you to understand a lot of scripture. So this is talking about your brother. That means the people within your own tribe, your land possession becomes poor. It's your job to take care of them. It's your job. Nobody should be going poor, okay? But that doesn't mean that you can't make a deal to take care of him. Like, I'll take care of you for such and such amount of time, but you need to let me use your land. So that is, that is a debt, but it's not a debt, right? It's not like you owe me, but it's like, as long as I'm taking care of you, I get to use your land. I get to work your land. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Alrighty. Take no interest from him or profit, but you shall fear your Elohim, and your brother shall live with you.
So it says that you can't take interest from him or profit. You can't make a debt or an increase of him. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is because, you're taking care of him because that's your responsibility. But at the same time, you get to use his land. But like, let's say, well, you're in a bad situation. So I'll use your land for now. And then when you're back on your feet, I'll keep your land for another 7 years or whatever. You can't do that. You cannot take advantage of him. You cannot take a profit from it. But as long as you're taking care of him, you have the right to use his land.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unspoken deal. All right.
Do not lend him your silver on interest, and do not lend him your food for profit.
Same thing. If you give him silver, if you give him food, you just have him pay it back eventually.
Right.
You can't take interest on it.
Right. I am Yehovah, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim to give you the land of Canaan to be your Elohim.
Right. So he's saying, basically he's doing a callback. Like, you don't do what the Mitzrayims did, right? They were in their richest land, and they were well taken care of because of everything that Joseph did. And then when the population got too many, they're like, okay, we need to take advantage of this population and have them go to work for us in order to stay in that land, even though that land was already promised to them.
Mm-hmm.
Mitzrayim took advantage of them for being there. And this is why Yah said, well, I took you out of that situation. I took you out of Mitzrayim. So you do not act like them and take advantage of people that are, in the situation where they're on your land.
Right. And when your brother who dwells by you becomes poor and sells himself to you, do not make him serve as a slave.
Okay, very hard understanding because it's not slave. This one says bondservant. It's actually better, but I can see why they did this because King James Version pick and choose. Like, some places they'll say bondservant, some places they'll say slave.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just the server, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And because they poor your brother with the people of yours and continue to sell to you, he sells himself to you. Do not you have him serve in him the server of server. In other words, don't make him as a servant of a servant, which is a hard understanding, but there was rankings, right? So you have servers that have full run of the property as if they were part of the family. And then you had other servers that did all the grunt work. Mm-hmm. Like, let's say you as a server, as soon as the sun sets, your work is done for the day. But the server of the server, like, let's say a fence breaks at night. That's the guy that's going to go out and fix it in the night because he's the server of the server.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's, again, back to that hierarchy thing. And you can, for people that are not familiar with this concept, please go back and look at the Hebrew. It says the serve of the server. It's not bond servant. It's not slave.
All right.
There's a hierarchy here. All right.
Okay.
And that's why he says, don't treat him as that. You make him your servant, but you don't make him a servant of a servant.
Right. But as a hired servant, as a settler, he is with you and serves you until the year of Yovel.
Okay, so this is a hired wage servant. A hired wage servant gets a day's wage for a day's work, which means at sunset, they go home. But in this case, they're living with you, but you still treat him as a hired wage employee, someone that works from sunrise to sunset, but he's part of the household, like a ranch hand, right? They live on the property, but they only work their work hours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
Like that. All right.
All right. And then he shall leave you, he and his children with him, and shall return to his own clan, even return to the possession of his fathers.
Okay, so if he's your brother, right, which means of your same tribe, and he's living with you while he's poor, even though he lives with you as family, when he gets his, income back, when he's able to stand on his own 2 feet, he's no longer part of your family. He goes back to his own family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't keep him captive there because, like, well, I took care of you, so now you owe me for the rest of your life. No, you can't do that. He's allowed to, once he gets back on his feet, he's allowed to go off back to his own land, and then you make some other arrangement for payback if there is any left at that point.
Right. For they are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Mitzrayim. They are not sold as slaves.
Right, so they're not sold servants. Sold servants. Okay? The seller or price of serve.
Do not rule over him with harshness, but you shall fear your Elohim.
That means do not break him down. You don't run him into the dirt. You don't run him day and night. Well, I'm taking care of you. You're poor, so you do whatever I say,
Right.
nonstop.
Right.
No, don't do that.
And your male and female slaves, whom you have from the nations that are around you, from them you buy male and female slaves.
Yep. So again, bondmen, bondmaids are a better translation, but the female slaves, it actually says that these are nannies. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which they exist for action to the Goyim, which is just another nation, another group of people. It's funny that Goyim in this location is translated as heathen.
Heathen?
In the King James Version, yeah.
Wow.
If you get a servant from the heathen, okay, so you have the nations that are around you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Them you shall buy. Okay, so remember up here, it says do not have sold as slaves, and this sold is selling or buying merchandise price, right?
Right.
So when you're down here and it says you shall buy, that's not buy. That's acquire and nest. They become part of your not your inner circle, but you know what I'm saying.
It
like
says the building of the nest of the family. So like for your household, right?
Yeah, for your household, right? So is this slavery, buying a human being for slavery? No. You're brought in, you're nested in to the household as a servant and a nanny.
Mm-hmm.
This is different. If it was a female server, then it would be avada, but it's ima. Ima is the same word as mother. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You bring them in as a paid mother. This is a nanny, or a wet nurse, even sometimes, right?
Right.
If people don't know what those words mean, look them up.
Right. Right.
Okay, so that's there is nothing about kidnapping, right? That's what, if you buy a human being to be your slave for life, that's kidnapping, which is punishable by death in Torah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's the same as murder because you're taking someone's life. There is no way that Yah would say, well, if you buy them from the nations, if you give money to own a human from another nation, it's okay. No, it's not. That is not what this says. And these are the verses that get twisted and say, oh, yeah, he's such a loving God that he thinks that slavery is okay if you buy him from somebody else. That's not the case at all.
Right.
Look at the Hebrew words that are used here and not the translations.
Right.
You do not buy servant. You nest them. Huge difference. Huge difference.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. And also from the sons of the strangers sojourning among you, from them you buy, and from their clans who are with you, which they shall bring forth in your land, and they shall be your property.
Okay. Oh my gosh, here we go with property,
Mm-hmm.
confusion, possession, confusion,
Mm-hmm.
and buy, confusion. Okay. You shall branch and take hold. You shall nest them and take hold of them. Nest them and take hold. That's all. It has nothing to do with them being your property. Oh, I own you. No. As so long as they're in your care, they're as okay, it would be like me saying I own my children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in one form, yes, I technically own my children, but that doesn't mean that I own them as in like they're not to have their own life, right? That's not what it means. But it's like that type of thing where they become part of the household. It's not about owning somebody as a slave. It's just not. And not only that, but it says again with their families. Okay, from the family, the joining. Okay, so this means like if somebody's working for you, their whole family can come and live with you, but they're not all your servants. If I was having a hard time and I didn't have a house and I moved in with somebody to work with them and they put my family up also, what a horrible thing, huh?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
It's saying if you need to take care of the whole family, you take care of the whole family. You nest them in and you take hold of them. All right.
Yeah. It's funny though that those subtle changes just completely change the meaning of everything.
Exactly. And these are used as gotcha verses. Like, why would you read the Bible when this evil God says it's okay to buy people?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm not calling out any names, but people do that.
I know. And you shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them as a possession. They are your slaves for all time, but over your brothers, the children of Israel, you do not rule with harshness one over another.
Okay, so they are to your descendants to inherit, to be heads of, to take hold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Forever in them. So long as they're in your care, let's use that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So long as they're your responsibility, they can stay there for generations. But that's an agreed upon, scenario. Like, okay, so for instance, we read back a while ago, I think it was like Exodus 21 or so, that if you're a servant and you decide that you love your master, that you put an all through your ear saying, I belong to this family. That's something you choose.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something you're forced into. Do not break them down to separation. And rule is the word that's also translated as dominion. It means to spread, to sheet over. So it's not just a ruling of, it's a protection of, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just rule, it's rule and protect. All right. Verse 47.
All right. 1:6, sorry. All right. Now when a sojourner or a settler with you becomes rich, and your brother with him becomes poor, and sells himself to the settler or sojourner with you, or to a member of the sojourner's clan, after he
A lot to unpack here, but yeah,
right
keep going.
after he has been sold, there is a right of redemption to him. One of his brothers does redeem him.
So it's the same scenario of the Israelites. There can always be redemption from a member of the family, even if they're a stranger or a sojourner, they can be redeemed. So how is that slavery? If you can be redeemed by your brother, that's definitely not slavery. Like, oh, he owes you this much, here you go, I'll take him from here.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense for people to think anything different. So the unpacking here. So sojourner is the short stayer, not landowner. So this is someone who's trying to join with the people. And then you have the settler, that's a bad translation, I think. It says stranger here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a returner. This is someone who, let's say he vacations in Israel, right? So
Mm-hmm.
6 months in his homeland, 6 months in Israel. He's a returner. He's
Mm-hmm.
someone that leaves and comes back. Maybe he works for Israel for 6 months and then goes home and lives like a king. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's kind of something going on like that here in modern times. I used to work with them. So on work visas, they would come here and make, a little bit more than minimum wage, but then they go back home and they use that money and live like kings. So, yeah, so there's a difference between sojourner and settler. There's a difference between sojourner and stranger. This is not stranger, this is returner, which is different than the stranger as in the nations, like the goyim, the ones that don't live there at all. These are returners. These are people that come back on multiple occasions. All right. Verse 49.
All right. Or his uncle or his uncle's son does redeem him, or anyone who is a close relative to him in his clan does redeem him, or if he is able, then he shall redeem himself.
How is that slavery if he can redeem himself out of it? It's just ridiculous when people take stuff out of context. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right.
And he shall reckon with him who bought him. The price of his release shall be according to the number of years, from the year that he was sold to him until the year of Yovel, as the days of a hired servant it is with him.
Okay, so you take account to what you've already worked off, and then you owe the remaining balance. Pretty self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm. If there are yet many years, according to them, he repays the price of his redemption from the silver of his purchase.
Okay, and silver could be any desired payment, not just necessarily silver, because silver is this word, but it also means that which is desired. So if they want to pay back in gold,
Mm-hmm.
if they want to pay back in jewels, if they want to pay back in service, if they want to pay back in livestock or whatever. But it's saying that which has value can buy back years that
Mm-hmm.
you've committed yourself to work.
Right. And if few years are left until the year of Yovel, then he shall reckon with him, and according to his years he repays him his price of his redemption.
Okay.
He is with him as a yearly hired servant, and does not rule with harshness over him before your eyes.
Okay, so same thing that we were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
He's a 9-to-5er.
Right. And if he is not redeemed in these years, then he shall be released in the year of Yovel, he and his children with him.
There you go.
Because the children of Israel are servants to me, they are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Mitzrayim. I am Yehovah, your Elohim.
All right, there you go. We made it. 55 verses. Not a bad one.
Awesome.
But yeah, definitely have had lots of spiraling nonsense about this. If I stop sharing screen, is it going to mess you up, or do you have a backdrop when I stop sharing?
It just goes to my desktop, which is the Unveiling This Realm picture.
Okay, works for me. All right, because I hate looking up here at the chat. It looks like I'm like looking up to the sky like the whole time. I'd rather be looking at the camera. All right. So shout out to Tom Budis. Shout out to Napai. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. FE Nation, Critical Inception. What's up, brother? Critical Inception will be down here very soon in this area. He'll be living here very soon, and I'm very excited.
Awesome.
Joseph Osborne, Shabbat Shalom. Captain Construction, Shabbat Shalom. Keep Tiffany in our prayers. Yes, please. Cable Guy Forever. I wish Cable Guy Forever was lived nearby and I could get in touch with him so it could help me not spend $500 to get my stupid cable working and my internet working. Anyway, Captain Construction, has she tried med tea or probiotic drinks? Yes, my wife brought her probiotic drinks because my wife is a caregiver. She did a good job to go out there and try to help her. Alex Javier, yes, Karen B's channel is shut down again. Daryl Davis, what's up, brother? Oh, look, Carolyn answered. I got her some probiotic drinks. Awesome. Okay. Question. What Jubilee doesn't appear? That's a question. Yeah, Jubilee is not a word. It was invented by the Englishmen. So, yeah. Yovel versus Jubilee. Let Scripture define itself. We just read the chapter. You figure out what it means. Don't let people give you new meanings to words. That's about that. Okay. Voynich, were you stricken once again, Karen?
Yep.
Yes. Did you appeal? Yeah, denied. Okay. Captain Construction, this sounds almost like the 7th year land rest. Is there a difference? Can you elaborate? No, this is literally the 7th year land rest and then the Jubilee. It's just, I don't like using the terms that they not even hijack, but create to hijack the concept. Like Jubilee specifically being about the land, and then people saying, well, that means that we don't owe our debts and blah, 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 blah. It doesn't speak of that specifically. Because the debt system that we have is already evil because it charges interest, right? So it's very complicated to try to force Scripture belief into modern collection agencies. It's like more power to you. It's just not practical. Dennis Omeron, hey guys, Jubilee. Okay.
But it is against Scripture to be charging interest on loans. Definitely. It says it a couple times.
Yes.
It's usury is what it is.
And Voynich says you can blame Owen for your strike.
Yeah. It's so stupid. There's not even any hate speech in that video. It's all just him waking up to flat Earth. He doesn't talk about anything else controversial in it. It was up through the entire pandemic thing where they were like striking me left and right for all kinds of other stuff. It makes zero sense. It's purely just them messing with me. It always happens right before my event. I should be used to it by now, quite honestly.
Yeah, so for clarification, Alex Javier, Owen Benjamin's video of him coming to Flat Earth was being played on Karen's channel, and they struck it, and this video is 4 years old.
It already had almost 80,000 views on it, you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been there a long time.
It was there for a while.
Yeah. I'm still catching up with the last 7 streams or so. Way behind. Looks like Rumble is back up in order.
Yeah.
As far as like 7 streams behind, you may not be, because we missed a couple of weeks because of technical errors or some other nonsense going on. So, like I had to defend my chickens this last couple of weeks as well. So that was interesting. Voynich, guys, I'm wearing glasses. I'm old from here on. Okay.
I'm old too.
I don't
It's
know
all
about the
good.
relevance, but all right, thanks for sharing. Thunder Chicken, what's up, brother? Much love. Okay. Fail to see how either of them are at fault. Okay, yeah, we're still talking about the strike here. Hazelnuts too. I guess hazelnuts are also something that every 7 years seems to have a triple yield. Hold on one second. The oaks in Florida have bumper acorn production every 7 years. Some bamboo seeds every 7th year. Cicadas, etc.
Yeah. Cicadas, there's a few different cicadas that do, there's 5 year, 7 year, 17 year and stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Definitely
Do you
something
feel
to
that crop rotation fulfills the land rest requirement? Yes and no. Because we don't have the actual Jubilee year, if I was doing my own crops, I would have one portion of my land that worked for the 7 years. And then while that one was resting, I'd have the other one going. I would do that. Yeah. I don't know that it's fulfilling the commandment because we're not in the land. We don't have record of the true Jubilee, but I would make it a practice of myself of letting each chunk of land rest every 7th year. And that would mean, have multiple, I would do rotation, like he was talking about. So yes, I would agree that would be a proper way to practice this concept. I'll leave it like that. The Venus pentagram cycle is 7 years. Yeah, well, just because I give it a new name doesn't mean it's different. Okay. Yovel sounds SJOFLE. Sajofel sounds. Yovel sounds SJOFLE. I don't know what that says. Okay. If we find a tree that yields 3 times the yield, can we find the true timeline? Or is this every 7 years very localized to that crop that was planted? I don't know. If I had a tree that I realized triple portioned every 7 years, I would let it rest the next year, just out of observation. I would. Alex Javier, good idea, but what if the start time for the number of years for the tree from the time it starts to produce and not dedicated to a standardized point of time? Yeah, that's what we were just talking about. Human nature being corrupt, people giving into not seeing their own hypocrisy, doing what Pharaoh did to them, and then doing it back to the people that multiplied in the land that Yah gave. Just realize it's July 15th. It's when the not nice person something met for the cremation of care in California at the Bohemian Grove. Okay, blah blah blah. I don't know that I even trust those types of histories anyway. Voynich, a steward. Yes, a steward. That's a good term for it as well. Someone who takes care of a specific thing or property. That's very good, steward. Yesterday was my last day at work for Critical Inception. Now comes the packing and preparation. Can't wait till you get here. So excited. Bill Wall, haven't seen you in a while. Shalom, brother. Thunder Chicken. Oh, we already discussed that about why she got shut down. Aisling 717 lost track of time down by the river. That's a good way to lose track of time out in nature. Is the video still up somewhere? Yeah, it's still up on DITRH. And she even contacted him, and he got struck, and he kicked it back and did not get struck.
Yeah, he appealed and won. I appealed and lost.
Yeah, Cami, this is a good one. I think you'll like it, especially since I've seen your comments to previous chapters. I think you'll like how I dug into this one because it's one that gets convoluted a lot. So I think you'll enjoy a couple of words that I translated for you. Critical conception. It will be awesome to have you around. Yeah, bless you. To make their name pop up so that they can see it, you have to put a at symbol before his name and then spell it exactly the same way, caps and everything. Okay. Sorry. Just see how he. Well, on your end, look, Carolyn, look at my screen. Your end, you see how your name is highlighted? This is how she typed it. At symbol, just Carolyn. Okay, you have to type it exactly that way, or it doesn't. Sorry, guys. Trying to educate my wife on YouTube chat.
Okay, it's not.
Sir, I haven't been knighted, Cammy. Yeah, and sir actually comes from like master, like you're my boss. So yeah. Well, Shabbat Shalom friend, Shabbat Shalom brother, Shabbat Shalom neighbor, whatever. At just Carolyn, looking forward to being around. Yep. Hurry up, bro. Hurry up. Hurry, Alex, Daryl says. Yeah. Okay, that's the end of chat. Yeah, it was a good subject. It needed to happen. Witsit had a debate, quote unquote, about this subject on his channel. But I think the guy was not understanding that Witsit wasn't there to defend slavery. Witsit was there to say that it's translated wrong.
Yeah.
Like he was supposed to be on the side that says Bible slavery is okay. And the other guy was like, the Bible's bad because he says slavery is okay. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But Witsit kind of like flipped the script because he's like, no, it's translated wrong.
Right.
He even mentions me. And, but the guy's like, well, appeal to authority is a big problem for this guy.
Yeah. It's a big problem for a lot of people.
A lot of people. Yeah, for sure. But just like I say about all the different, things that I've translated in the past, don't just take my word for it. Look it up for yourself. If you see it a different way, that's between you and Yah. That's not my responsibility to teach you what you're supposed to know / believe. It's probably better to watch after while not playing in the chat. I have to go back and listen to so many shows. You put a lot out there to contemplate, so appreciate that, Cammy. And shout out from Bill who agreed. So you think you found the video? Oh, a link to I can't be a flat earth person.
Is it?
No, it's the FE Awakening of Owen Benjamin.
Yeah, that's probably David's version. Yeah,
yep.
his version stayed. Mine got put away. Mine got struck. Whatever. I just can't do anything on my channel, and then I have to be really, really, really good until October because for 3 months the strike will stay on the channel, and then if something else happens, they'll give me another strike, and 3 strikes and you're out.
Yeah. So if you understand, like Karen sees correlation of the more she advertises her Flattoberfest events, the more they're fine-tooth combing trying to find something wrong with her.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
It's clear to me now after 6 events that's the pattern that's happening.
Yeah. As soon as you start like hard, supporting or advertising your event.
Yeah, and it's 3 months away. This is go time, and they're all, nope, strike.
Yeah. So don't forget to share with others if they don't know that Karen B has another channel, Unveiling This Realm. Make sure you share that with everybody because she has way more subscribers on Karen B than she does on this channel. So please share that information around. If somebody mentions Karen B, just say, hey, do you know that she's currently stricken and you have to go to Unveiling This Realm? Let them know, please.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I went to her page because I don't get involved with live YouTube much at all anymore. I just kind of scroll through for the last week or so and like, oh, I'll watch that or not watch that. But I thought that when you went to the channel, it would say this site has been stricken or something, but it doesn't say anything. So nobody knows that she's stricken right now. So this happens every time you're putting out an event. Impossible not to notice. What about Mark? Has he been stricken so many times, still up and running?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but he can't post new videos for a while, and then it'll start coming back again. See where he can start.
Yeah, Mark doesn't live stream either. So
yeah, he pre-records everything now. Yeah. He used to live stream.
yeah.
JEW Tube has begun losing advertisement revenue because of Rumble.
Well, not that I'm sad
Maybe.
about it. You can find me on Rumble, by the way. Anybody who wants to not give YouTube the business anymore. Just saying.
But you can still give them the business. In the end, capitalism will deal with them. Look at Disney losing $1 billion with their rubbish woke movies. Yeah, it's getting crazy. It's getting crazy. Anyways, love y'all. Shabbat shalom.
Yeah.
Earth is still flat.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us once again for another episode of Anti-Religious Scripture Study. And we hope you have a restful day. And we'll see you again next Saturday. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.